Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I, in fact, passed out from Center for Political Studies from School of Social Sciences. And I still remember the fabulous professors I had, particularly Mr. Sudipta Kaviraj, who used to teach us political philosophy. And I remember in the first class, he put a small graph and said that, if you take the economic history of the world for the last 5,000 years, you will find it's like the wave of the sea. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes up. And all that you have to do is put the philosophers in the time dimension as to where in economic history they figured. And if you know whether he was in the boom period or he was in the tough down period, you can mostly draw his philosophy. Well, he said there were three mad people to that, who didn't fit into the graph. One was Plato, the other was Rousseau, and of course the third one was Karl Marx. I'm not going into why they didn't fit into the graph and why they were mad. I mean, mad in the sense not actually mad, but in that sense they didn't fit into the graph, the traditional makeup. But it's a great place, and I also happen to be the president of the Alumni Association briefly. That was, I think, 2017. So JNU is a great place, and I remember in my 80 batch of IAS, so we had 33 people in IAS out of 126, and we used to in Mussoorie call it the mini JNU. I mean, great days, great campus. So thank you for organizing this, and of course, self-reliance in India, I'm not the right person to talk because I had an international organization where India is our host country. Host country meaning, it championed the treaty, the framework agreement under which ISA was created. And it was opened up in Marrakesh. It's the first international intergovernmental body. And we are proud of the 88 flags, national flags that we fly in the meeting hall. I think the only place in India where you have so many flags. Yes, you read out that it is limited to 121 countries because initially it was limited to the tropics. But of late, so many countries from outside India would like to, outside the tropics would like to be members. That act has got amended. And but under international treaty, this act has to be ratified by 4 more countries. And it becomes the critical number of 2/3, 30 countries. And then, one day 194 countries of the world will be the members of this organization to be headquartered in India. So I'm very pleased and I'm very, proud of not only being an ex-alumni of JNU, but also having the privilege of heading this organization. Now, what do we do to promote, self-reliance? Of course, we talk about energy security, we talk about energy independence, we talk about energy access. And if you look at the world demography that, all UN bodies, everyone used to say by 2030, everybody on earth will have energy access. And a few months back, World Bank has come up with a study that despite, all our promises in the past, by 2030, still there will be 700 people in the world without energy access, without access to electricity. Now, what do you do? I mean, in 21st century, with a world of some $68 trillion, we are talking about 700 million people having no access to electricity. And this is, a different type of reliance we're talking about. It's no question of self-reliance. They just cannot, be self-reliant. Now, what is the challenge? The challenge is simple. Challenge is simple is that the moment you look at the cost of energy, we are talking about, I happen to be the secretary in Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in 2014 when, we started something called Renewable Energy Invest. The cost of solar energy was around 7 rupees per unit. Today it is 3 rupees, but that is not good enough. We're talking about grid parity. Can you really match, those days if you meet a minister or the prime minister, they'll say, can you match your solar tariff with coal? And it was way different. We actually used to take coal derived thermal energy to reduce the cost of solar energy. It's called bundling. You take 5 units of coal energy or thermal energy, which was cheaper, bundle with 1 unit of solar energy, and you bring down the cost of solar energy. Today, it is just the reverse. I heard big thermal producers are using solar to bring down the cost of thermal. So we have reached the grid parity between solar and thermal, which means the self-reliance for many has increased. But it's not good enough, because there are many people who can afford kerosene for lighting, but not solar energy, because solar energy is still very costly. So the next generation, for self-reliance in energy or energy access, we are talking is something called kerosene parity, which means in countries like, in many countries, it's around $15 a month, meeting all energy costs. So if we can bring down the cost of reliable and sustainable solar energy to that level, that is going to be a win-win or a game changer. So in the International Solar Alliance, we are looking at that. How do you bring down the cost of capital? And of course, how do you bring down the cost of, technology? If you look at the solar field, it's not, if a little bit of physics, the spectrum of light and the visible range, it is a very small range. And the entire, photon generator, solar DC, the electric current comes from the photons, which are, comes from the electrons in the semiconductor, which are bombarded by photons, and in the process, they are made to flow in a stream of electricity. But there is a large chunk behind this visible range, both sides, the infrared and ultraviolet, which are still not tapped. And we are getting new technologies which perhaps, can tap this heat. And maybe at night you will have solar panels which generate electricity. You can, have types of managerial efficiency, technological efficiency, cost efficiency, and that is driven. And that is why, if you talk about last 10 years, the cost has come down almost by 80% in terms of solar panels. But still, it is not good enough to take the cost of solar energy from grid parity to kerosene parity. And from kerosene parity, if actually you have a number of million of people who cannot even afford kerosene. And that is when we are talking about near zero cost. So today, suppose in Indian context, energy, the tariff is around 3 rupees. And if you take a 25-year period and the discount at 5%, most of you are familiar with that table, discounting table, it will come down to 1/3 after 25 years, which means I'm essentially contracting solar energy at current rate, which works out to, after 25 years, maintaining a uniform tariff, comes down to almost 1/3. So if you can go further, in terms of technological efficiency, in terms of volume, aggregation of demand, we have to go a long distance to actually bring down the cost to near zero. For that, what International Solar Alliance does, we have a typical governance structure. We have an assembly, and we have a standing committee. We have divided the entire 66 or 88 countries to 4 regions: the Latin American region, the African region, the Asia Pacific, and the European and others. We have got 2 vice presidents from each region, currently 1 additional members. For example, Africa, Togo and Niger, and Latin America, we have Peru and Venezuela. Asia, we have Tonga and Sri Lanka. And of course, the president is India and the co-president is France. So that forms the governance structure. And under this, the guidance of the assembly, we carry out 6 projects. And these projects are identified very carefully. Agriculture project to help the farmers, and mini grids, rooftop, storage, e-solar vehicles. We have also solar parks. So the whole idea is to increase the volume of application of solar to such an extent the prices automatically come down. And I'll give you an example of what actually we do to bring down prices. And this is the self-reliance of farmers. Can you get your own irrigation water? Can you have control and ownership of the technologies that can help you to irrigate your own land? Because for a farmer, and to have control over the irrigation is a big thing, because it not only enhances the income of the farmer, but it also empowers him or her to have access to a lot more benefits in the society. So we asked our member countries, would you like to help farmers? 22 of those member countries, they actually came down and gave us a list of farmers, which amounted to 272,000. Now we wonder what we do with the list. I mean, you cannot go and directly put a pump there, because as an international organization, you have to go through the sovereign countries. So we actually invited EESL. You must have heard about this public sector undertaking, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, which is brought in the LED revolution in India. They bought some 310 million of LED bulbs, which resulted in the price reduction of for each ball from 400 rupees to 50 rupees. And this itself was a price revolution. And that I tell you without compromising the quality. So we hired EESL to have a floating global tender to bring down the cost of pumps. And we're very happy to tell you that it has come down almost by 40%. Now, the next step we are doing, to develop self-reliance in terms of, of course, distributed manufacturing. We are going to combine or aggregate demand for 150 million home lighting systems, which means almost 450 million LED bulbs, 150 million solar fans, 150 million solar refrigerators, 150 million mobile chargers, and of course, mobile phones. So we believe in the Solar Alliance that aggregation of demand is one way actually to address issues of poverty, issues of self-reliance. And with this, we have put a roadmap and a roadmap to actually how to promote investment, how to promote the environmental welfare, and how to promote employment. So we are different from other international organizations because we do not believe too much in workshops, report preparation and all that. We focus on action, and any action that has some value in the field, we appreciate. And I think that is something we learned in JNU. I mean, when we're reading about, Karl Marx, I think, those days they told that Karl Marx's father wanted Karl Marx to be a lawyer, a first-rate lawyer. So Karl Marx comes to Germany and wants to study literature and becomes the president of some drinking club. Well, I mean, it was a different story, but he was talking more about action. And if you look at his, dialectics, it's not so much philosophy that influences, but it is the action that happens in the society that happens. So, in a sense, I mean, JNU teaches us, taught us, even still it does, that what is more important in life is how we act and what actions we incur. With this, I'm very thankful to our Alumni Association. I hope they were talking about a building that has come up, and I always appeal to our colleagues to donate some money to the alumni, because in most organizations, alumni take contributions. So I will avail this opportunity to all the audience that if you are from JNU, please donate at least some 10 days of your salary so that we can build the place. I think we thought of building a library for Alumni Association, so that it's a place where alumni can go and sit down and study. Thank you all once again, and thank you all for your patience and time. I presume that most of our listeners today are from JNU. That's why I took this forum to appeal, and I seek an apology for that. Thank you.